It was a moment that nobody in the room saw coming. The kind of moment where the air thickens, time seems to stop, and you can almost feel the injustice hanging in the air. In the high-rise building that towered over downtown Atlanta, a young black employee named Malik sat at his desk, trying to focus on the report in front of him. Malik had been working for years in the company, giving it everything he had: long hours, late nights, and meticulous attention to detail. He had earned his spot through sheer grit and determination. But no matter how much effort he put in, it felt like he was invisible to those who counted. His work was ignored, his ideas dismissed, and that was nothing compared to the disdain he faced from the CEO. David Harper, the company's CEO, was everything that Malik wasn't. A well-dressed, sharp-talking man in his mid-40s, David was the embodiment of corporate success, at least on the surface. He commanded the room with an air of superiority, always with a sharp word or a dismissive comment for those he considered beneath him. And to him, Malik was nothing more than just another employee to be overlooked. On that fateful afternoon, Malik had been summoned to David's office. It was a routine meeting. At least that's what Malik thought. He wasn't prepared for what would happen next. As Malik entered David's lavish office, the tension was palpable. David was sitting behind his massive desk, looking at some reports. He barely glanced up as Malik entered, a clear signal that he didn't have much time for the young man. But Malik, ever the professional, stood tall and waited patiently. "Sit," David ordered flatly without looking up from his papers. Malik sat, his heart racing as he tried to steady his breath. He had been through enough of these meetings to know that nothing ever came easy with David. But this time, something was different. The tone in the room felt colder, almost hostile. David finally looked up, his eyes scanning Malik for a brief moment before he spoke. "You think you're ready for the promotion? You think you deserve it?" Malik felt a wave of frustration wash over him, but he kept his composure. "I've been working here for over 5 years. I've brought in new clients, helped the company expand, and I've been consistent with my performance," he said, his voice steady but with an undercurrent of emotion. David smirked. "Yeah, well, your performance isn't exactly what we're looking for. You don't have the right presence, Malik. You're not impressive enough." Malik froze. The words cut deeper than anything he had expected. He had always known that David didn't truly see him. But this felt like a personal attack. David continued, oblivious to the hurt he was causing. "You're just a cog in the machine, nothing special. You need to know your place." The words echoed in Malik's mind as David turned his attention back to his papers, dismissing him as if he were a mere nuisance. Malik stood there for a moment, the sting of David's words settling into his chest. But something shifted within him. He had taken too much over the years, his hard work, his dedication, his professionalism, all overlooked because of his race. David's words, though cruel, sparked something in Malik. A fire that had been smoldering deep within him for years was finally ignited. As he walked out of the office, Malik made a decision. He wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. Over the next few weeks, Malik did something that no one expected. He started quietly gathering evidence: emails, reports, documents. Everything that could show how David had been overlooking his work and how the company had been systematically undermining employees like him. But it wasn't just about the promotion anymore. It was about justice. He was determined to make the world see the truth about the CEO and his toxic leadership. Malik knew he couldn't do it alone. So, he turned to his network. He reached out to other employees who had been pushed aside, who had been made to feel invisible or unimportant, simply because they didn't fit David's mold. Together, they began to build a case, one that would expose the injustice within the company. But the twist? Malik didn't just want to take David down. He wanted to replace him. He didn't want the CEO role just for the title. He wanted it because he knew how to lead with integrity, empathy, and respect, something David had never understood. The more Malik and his allies dug, the more they uncovered. They found evidence of financial mismanagement, unethical practices, and the harsh treatment of employees. They uncovered everything that David had hidden behind his polished persona. But what shocked everyone the most was the moment when Malik revealed the truth to the board of directors. In a high-stakes meeting with all the key players in the room, Malik stood up and laid out the case against David. He spoke about the systemic issues, the blatant racism, and the mistreatment that had been going on for years. His words were sharp, calculated, and devastating. David, who had been sitting confidently at the head of the table, suddenly found himself on the defensive. The room, once full of sycophants and yes-men, was now eerily silent. The board members exchanged uneasy glances, clearly shaken by the revelations. The twist? The board didn't just side with Malik. They voted to remove David from his position as CEO. They saw, for the first time, the undeniable truth that Malik had been telling them. The company was broken, and the only way to fix it was to tear down the leadership that had built it. Within weeks, Malik was named the new CEO of the company, the first black CEO in the company's history, and the first leader who would lead with fairness, transparency, and a commitment to dismantling the toxic culture that had once dominated the business. David, on the other hand, was left with nothing. His arrogance, his entitlement, and his mistreatment of his employees had cost him everything. As Malik walked into his new office on the top floor of the building that had once belonged to David, he couldn't help but think about how far he'd come. This wasn't just about a promotion anymore. It was about justice. It was about changing the course of his life and showing the world that no one could stand in his way, no matter who they were or how much power they held. And in that moment, Malik knew that this was just the beginning. The fight for equality, respect, and fairness was far from over. But for the first time in a long time, Malik felt like he had finally taken control of his own destiny. To follow Malik's journey and find out what happens next, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more incredible stories.